Welcome everyone, and thank you for tuning into today's webinar. My name's Amy Rogers and I'm the Managing Editor of Research and Rankings here at WARC and your host today. We're going to be talking today about direct mail, its effectiveness, how to approach it from a creative perspective, and why now is the right time to reconsider the channel's role in the media mix. This webinar follows an in-depth piece of research that we've recently published with Royal Mail Marketreach that looks at the impact of direct mail on marketing effectiveness. So in this webinar, we're going to dive into the results of the study, looking at how brands in a range of sectors have used direct mail to really engage with targeted audiences. And I'm delighted to be joined today by Dan Jury, who's Marketreach's Senior Media Planner, and also by one of the brands that has really effectively utilised direct mail, and that's Sky. So Nigel Edington-Amor, who's Creative Director for Copy at Sky Creative, will be sharing the creative process for developing some of Sky's direct mail campaigns and some of the results that Sky have seen from those campaigns. So welcome to both of you, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning, thank you. Good morning, everyone.
So this is what today's webinar is going to cover. I'm first going to give a quick introduction to the study, what research it builds on and how we went about it in terms of methodology. And then I'm going to hand over to Dan to talk about the medium in a bit more depth. And then finally, we'll get the inside story from Nigel as to how Sky works with DM to acquire and win back customers. And we should have some time for questions at the end. So please, as we go through the webinar, you can type your questions into the question box and we'll try to get to them at the end. So let's kick things off with the research that has led to this webinar. So our objective of the research that we did in partnership with Royal Mail Marketreach was to use successful case studies to analyse the role of direct mail in driving campaign effectiveness, with a focus on UK cases between 2016 and 2020 from the WARC database. So our sample case study set was 135 case studies, and in each of those campaigns, the lead media was direct mail. And then we also looked at case studies that mentioned the use of direct mail, not as lead, but in the media mix. And that gave us an additional 83 cases. So we've analysed the characteristics of these groups of cases against the average successful UK case study on the WARC database from the same time period. And then we supplemented that analysis with a review of WARC's global data, best practice, and industry knowledge. And of course, we are partnering with experts in direct mail for this report in Royal Mail Marketreach. So we used their expertise along the way too, in addition to research from other industry bodies like JICMail. So why now? Direct mail is a very well-established channel, and in the last decade has, for some brands, taken maybe a bit of a backseat role behind the newer, shinier digital channels. But that explosion of digital channels means that demands on consumer attention have grown significantly. And mail, which offers that physical interaction with consumers, has the potential to stand out from the crowd of digital messages. Second, there's now greater potential than ever to reach highly targeted audiences with personalised mail. Lockdowns as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic have severely disrupted working patterns. And now we're looking at a post-COVID economy where hybrid working arrangements, particularly for high net worth consumers, are likely to be more common. And that means more consumers at home, more of the time, meaning more time to check through posts that's been delivered. Third, the rise of e-commerce over the past few years. It's been rapid and significant. You now have direct-to-consumer businesses raising expectations of home delivery and the physical experience that brings. And they're capitalising on the attention gained through this physical touch point on the doorstep. And mail can have the same impact from the moment of delivery and lasting through multiple interactions with the mailed items. And finally, something we talk a lot about at WARC, that is the need to balance brand and performance. And with the wealth of channels and formats on offer, marketers need to evaluate their channel mix regularly to ensure that it's delivering on both those brand and performance counts. So this research looks at the role of direct mail in both retention and acquisition, providing data on how the channel can drive both performance and brand building metrics. So that's the why now. This slide summarizes the key findings of the study. Now, Dan's going to show a few of the report's charts in his section, so I won't spend too long on this. But the report covers these 6 areas. First, we looked at the impact of both leading with mail and using it in the mix on hard metrics like revenue, ROI, and market share, and found that those cases were more likely to have notable hard metrics than the average case study. We look at how physical marketing captures attention, and I've talked a bit about that already. We provide data that backs up that point around mail meeting both acquisition and retention objectives. We then explore how the channel is particularly effective amongst Gen Z, with insights from Marketreach and YouGov that show higher levels of engagement and trust among this demographic. And then obviously connected with that is the targeting and personalization capacity of DM, and with the added boost of mail entering the home and being engaged with on multiple occasions. And then our final chapter looked at the measurement of mail, offering some guidelines around how to get set up for accurate mail measurement and the role of econometrics in moving beyond basic last click attribution. So hopefully that set the scene somewhat. I'm now going to pass over to the first of our guest speakers, Dan Jury from Marketreach, to talk to us about how to be effective with mail and go into a bit more detail on those research findings. So Dan, over to you.
That's great. Thanks, Amy. So yeah, good morning, everybody. As Amy said, this is a really significant piece of research for us. And we kind of recognise that, sort of during the pandemic, there was a real kind of rapid shift in digital transformation. And for that reason, as a media owner and sort of authority on commercial mail, we really needed to kind of drive reappraisal of the mail channel as we emerged from the pandemic. But also we needed to help brands understand its potential effectiveness in the wider media mix, but we weren't exactly sure how we were going to do that. Next slide, please. So we kind of had 5 key challenges to address, really. So the first one being that mail performance tends to be assessed by a smaller number of response and business metrics. And that often leads to this misconception that it's less effective than other channels. And if you think about sort of digital marketing and digital platforms, you have a huge range of campaign delivery metrics to choose from. The second thing is that mail is often dismissed for being too expensive on a cost per thousand basis. And people kind of forget about the actual outcomes that the higher investment can actually deliver for them. The third thing is that mail lacks that kind of shininess of TikTok or the theatre of television, or that kind of big box impact of out of home. And for that reason, direct mail is often kind of overlooked or forgotten about. The fourth thing is that mail is perceived as tricky to measure an attribute accurately, and it's often the unfortunate victim of last click attribution, as Amy mentioned a moment ago. And despite Marketreach having a wealth of sort of research and content about why mail matters, we needed a credible and independent marketing authority to prove its impact. And we couldn't have asked for a better partner than WARC to help us do that. Next slide, please. So delving into the actual report now, it's really important to say that mail is still the 3rd largest channel. And the Advertising Association and WARC forecasts almost 4% of budgets will be invested in DM in 2021, which is a little bit surprising for some people that we are the 3rd largest channel, but we have been for quite some time. And the other thing that's quite surprising about this chart is just the sheer kind of investment in online channels. Over 70% is forecast this year, which is really interesting in the context of what Dr. Grace Kite was saying at FWorks last week when she was going through the findings from the ARC research. And she was talking about the optimum split between offline and online being 55 and 45%. So that kind of really highlights to me the kind of the disconnect between the academic evidence that's out there and what's actually happening in reality. But the good thing for DM is the investment is kind of stabilizing after a few years of decline. And for those that invest, the kind of lower volume of mail messaging at the moment, because there is less mail coming through the letterbox, is a great opportunity for brands to kind of gain greater share of voice. So that's a really good opportunity for brands. And there's a huge variety of brands that invest in DM, that they're all trying to leverage the physical impacts of mail to make really powerful connections with their customers. And I'm really excited to hear from Nigel in a moment. He's going to tell us about how his brand uses the channel. But Sky are in great company. There's the likes of Barclaycard, Tesco, Specsavers, Boots, and even tech giants like Amazon that use the medium. And there's a really simple reason they still use this medium. And basically the answer is cut through. Mail delivers consistently high engagement rates, 95% at the moment, according to the latest Shipmail data, which is really unrivaled in comparison to other channels. And with the pandemic, the whole kind of work from home and hybrid working trend has given DM even greater impact. Mail's really capturing consumer attention for longer. And this data from IPA Touchpoints is really interesting in that it shows us pre-lockdown in 2020, during the week, people on average during the day, they were spending just under 14 minutes looking at post and mail. Now, during the first lockdown in 2020, that increased slightly, a modest 4% increase. But what was really interesting was the behavioural shift at the weekend, where attention went from sort of 25 minutes on average per day up to 32.5 minutes per day, an uplift of 29%, which is really, really interesting and says a lot about our behaviours being restricted and then the way we kind of refocused our attention. So a really fascinating insight in the research for me was that mail was a really effective partner for digital, and the two are frequently used together in successful campaigns. Now, at Marketreach, we already knew that mail and email were really effective partners, and if you think about it, they're both direct marketing channels, albeit one's electronic and one's physical. But they do have their nuances, and that they are used together in successful campaigns to prompt different actions in the customer journey. So yeah, I wasn't surprised to see at the top there that email marketing was used in 33% of campaigns alongside direct mail. But the big news in the data for me was about sort of much broader digital integration. And of cases that use DM in the mix, 67% use mail with social media, 46% with online display, 45% with websites and microsites, and 37% with online video. So kind of really, really interesting. So I think it's fair to say that DM is a really powerful amplifier in the mix, and it can deliver really strong results and that really resonate with the boardroom. And mail really delivers on those harder campaign metrics that you can see on the right-hand side of your screen. And WARC's analysis found that direct mail amplifies messages and calls to action run through other channels to enhance the bottom line and overall campaign performance. So I won't go through every line on this chart, but just one I did want to draw your attention to is ROI, which is effectively a lot of time what the boardroom is really concerned about when they're talking about marketing investment. And as you can see there for ROI, 35% of campaigns that use direct mail in the media mix reported ROI benefits, compared to just 23% for all UK cases. So that for me was really compelling evidence. Not only does direct mail work, it works really, really hard in an integrated campaign. And I think it's also really important to say that direct mail is more than a performance channel. We get asked a lot whether mail is a performance channel, a direct response channel. Does it help with brand building? And the great thing about this research is that it sort of emphatically proves that it supports both. It boosts those kind of softer brand metrics to supporting long and short-term objectives. And the attention that mail gives you is really, really good for building brand awareness. And there's kind of an inherent advantage in direct mail landing on the doormat. It doesn't get lost in your social feed, it doesn't get lost in your inbox. And DM's always delivered to the same place and taps into the recipient's daily routine of opening their mail. Hence the reason you get those really high engagement rates. And this kind of attention and predictability captured by the physical nature of mail is really fantastic for driving brand awareness and brand equity, as well as other measures as well. So, it can boost things like web traffic, consumer participation, which is really interesting in the context of influencer marketing and UGC, and things like social media buzz. So it really does boost those sort of soft and hard metrics. And another really key insight from this report is that younger audiences welcome mail. Digital natives respond enthusiastically to physical brand experiences. And we've seen this kind of rise of the phygital. 88% of Gen Z consumers prefer brand experiences that combine physical and digital. And we've seen this real resurgence of QR codes actually being used by brands during the pandemic, which offer a really good opportunity to kind of connect the physical and digital world. And of course, they're very much second nature with this demographic who are used to scanning Snapchat codes. Trust is also a really important point to talk about. 45% of 15 to 24-year-olds are more likely to trust mail than any other age group. And according to IPA Touchpoints, it's actually the second most trusted channel for this demographic after search. And it's also important to say that mail drives action. 42% of 15 to 44-year-olds have searched for more info online after receiving mail in the last 12 months. So there's also a huge creative opportunity, and brands can really maximise their first-party data with smart segmentation to deliver highly personalised experiences in a privacy-first world. And that's exactly what Sites and Travel did, which is one of the case studies featured in the report. And they generated a really impressive 37-to-1 return on investment with personalised travel brochures, which represented a 533% uplift compared to non-personalised versions. And they also achieved a notable uplift in brand awareness through social sharing. So I definitely urge you to check out that case study. It's a really good one. It just shows how effective it was in partnership with PPC and social media. And I think it's fair to say that mail remains highly measurable too, and it's finding new ways to avoid the pitfalls of last click attribution all the time. And the direct marketing industry has really risen to the effectiveness challenge and invested in measurement. With gold standard audience measurement data from Jigmail, a solid understanding of campaign KPIs, and the right mechanics for tracking in place, the impact of mail can be tracked and attributed more efficiently than ever, supporting new test and learn initiatives and the inclusion of the channel in econometric models. And if you're interested in that, there's a fantastic white paper on the Jigmail website all about integrating mail in econometric models. So just to sum up, the key takeaways for me from the research is firstly that mail can be a really impactful differentiator in marketing campaigns, driving revenue and ROI for brands that are brave enough to invest. Direct mail can be highly personalised and targeted, capturing attention for longer with multi-sensory experiences and digital integrations. 3, direct mail delivers on both brand building and performance goals. Don't underestimate its power. It's not just a direct response medium. And lastly, mail remains one of the most measurable channels, and the direct marketing industry is facing the effectiveness challenge head on. So I've spoken a lot about the media effectiveness of mail, but now it'd be really great to hear Nigel's perspective about the creative effectiveness of mail and how his brand leverages the medium. Over to you, Nigel.
Good morning, Dan. Amy, thanks everyone. My name's Nigel. I'm one of 7 creative directors over at Sky Creative Agency. And as the guys say, I'm just here to talk to you about a particular campaign we call Disruptive Campaign for our win back and pending cancel customers. Right, so just a little bit of background. We are Europe's biggest in-house agency. We're fully integrated, we're through the line, and we run campaigns for Europe's leading media and entertainment brand, Sky. We also work across mobile, broadband, TV, cinema, sports news, so all the Sky brands. And now a TV, Sky Glass. I'm sure you probably couldn't have missed the blitz of advertising that we put into the world, and it's a great product, so pop out and buy one. So quick sales call there. We also work on promos, TVCs, we do broadcast design, we do digital, we do out-of-home campaigns, print, retail, email, and a lot of DM, which is what I'm here to talk to you about today. Right, so this is a guy called Howard Luck Gossage. This is a quote from him. Now, Wikipedia describes him as being an advertising innovator, an iconoclast during the Mad Men era. And I personally think this is one of the greatest quotes from anyone I've ever read in the business. Now, I think the reason it's relevant is that the perception of DM is often that no one reads that either, and WARC's report proved that's about as far from the truth it gets. But only if we make that DM interesting, and that's driven some of the campaigns I'll show you today. Now, Gossage also said this, and I think it's something we should always remember when we create any DM campaign, and I think it's a guiding principle, brilliant guiding principle for any copywriter like me. Now, we all know that some people think that most DM goes straight from doormat to bin, and to be honest, if it's rubbish, it deserves to. So our job as marketers and creatives is to interrupt that journey and make sure the creative stays in people's hands and doesn't get collected by the council on Thursday mornings. Now, what people forget often is that desktops have bins and trash too, so crap emails will end up there as well. And that's particularly when we're bombarded with them every minute of the day. Now, I'm not here to diss email or any form of digital. I just want to make the point that junk mail is junk mail in any media, and good creative work is good creative work in any media. Simple as that. So here's a little bit of background onto the campaigns. Obviously, Sky, like any business, has customers that tell us they want to leave. And our task as the agency, creatives and the marketers, is to convince them to stay or compel them to come back. So we target each person in 2 phases. So we've got pending cancel. They've told us that they're going to cancel, and that's up to 31 days. And then we've lost them. We've got the win back campaign that tries to bring them back into the fold. And we use personalized DM to present tailored price offers to show them what they're missing and then highlight the value. So this is the control. This is what we needed to beat. Now it's got all the right components, standard format A4. You've got the headline, explanatory copy, which is fairly concise, content panels to see what you get for the money, prominent offer and CTA. But we just felt it was a little bit traditional and a bit expected. And if you look on the reverse, I think the temptation, certainly in the marketing world, is always to fill that white space. And if you look at those panels, these are some of the packs that you can personalize and add on. But I think, you know, if the perception is that Sky is a little bit expensive, this probably makes that perception even worse. So we needed to take another look at this. Now, if you've seen the brilliant Black Panther movie, and if you haven't, rush out and see it, it's fantastic. There's a great quote from Princess Shuri, and that's the thinking really that we applied to our strategy, our approach, and the complete overhaul of the creative itself. So this takes the style of a Miss Parcel card. Now, as you can see, it's heavily branded, but the brightness of the color actually helps it look more authentic. You know, the authentic cards are actually red, and we've stripped out anything other than the key information. So it's all super short and to the point copy. We've stripped out anything that we don't need. Now, what was interesting is that we had quite a lot of disgruntled people calling us. And interestingly, the conversion rate for these guys was pretty high. So the point I'd probably make here is that a bit of bravery and controversy can work in your favor if you get it right. And I think, you know, the WARC report also explains very well that, you know, DM can lead to other channels. And if the purpose of this was to get people onto the phone, good call center operatives can help convert those sales. So as I say, a bit of controversy could work in your favor. Now on this one, we went completely unbranded on the outer, so there was a really brave decision to do this from the marketing team. So there was no color either, we just used a simple headline and some reverse psychology to create some intrigue. Now on a 48 sheet, the general rule is to keep the headline under 8 words, and DL, if you look at it, it's a very similar format and proportion, so that also drove the execution. Now on the inside, we paid off the headline with a line, but now here's what you're missing. And we included 4 of those key things. It was a key art from one of the biggest trending shows to dial up the FOMO. And the layout and content was designed so people could take it all in almost at a glance. And as you can see, we've also used channel logos on there. So again, at a glance, you can really get a sense of what you're going to get for your money with the offer, but really, really minimal. Now, we always spend a lot of time working on concepts, so I just thought it would be useful to show you how we developed one campaign in particular, you know, the thinking behind it. Now, during lockdown, I think we've all seen a lot of takeaway menus come through the letterbox and still do probably. So we looked at how we could piggyback off that and subvert the media to promote Sky. And this is the mood board we presented just to sort of start that conversation. So we picked out the key benefits of Sky. We listed them just like a menu, starters, main course and desserts. And we started with creative that showed hardware, but the feeling was that it didn't really look authentic enough. So we ditched that. We went portrait, which helped make the DM look more like a menu, but the hardware still got in the way of it looking real and authentic. We then looked at die cuts and even edible paper and ink, but we just thought it looked a little bit gimmicky. We've always thought that it's idea first rather than execution first. So we love the idea and maybe we'll park that and use it again, but you can see we've explored a lot of formats here. So this is what we went with. Really simple, elegant, lots of white space and super concise copy. And we work with our own expert print production team and the guys at the Letter Shop Group, the printing company, to get the best paper stock for the job. And I think that relationship, either with your in-house or external print buyers and print suppliers, really important to help develop the concept and make sure the execution is as good as it can possibly be. And that's how it looked. So basically, we wanted it to look like a decent restaurant, not here. I don't think I'll be booking a table for two here anytime soon, although maybe I'll give it a hilarious anniversary dinner shot and I'll let you know how that goes, but not from here. Right, peel and reveal. So the next campaign was inspired by a game of chance, scratch cards. Now, we wanted to see how people would respond to a more interactive piece. But the problem with scratch cards is that they're pretty unenvironmentally friendly, which isn't Sky at all, hence the peel and reveal format. Now, we thought using the Sky Spectrum colour would give us a lot of standout, which it would, but it just felt a little bit too garish, and we wanted a more sophisticated look and feel. We also looked at using TV screens, you know, as an idea, but it felt like it was too tied back to Sky and a bit plonky. So we went for a far simpler design. As you can see, lots of white space, simple mechanic, 3 peel and reveals, and that will reveal your offer. Now, I think, you know, the temptation, certainly in DM, is to try and fill that space with colour and words and images. But if everybody's doing that, you don't get stand out on the doormat. So sometimes a little bit of a restraint and some white space can give you that standout in a different way. Great, thank you very much. I thought again it'd be really useful to see how that concept came together and working with a print company, as I say, our own creatives and our own in-house print buyers, just to really bring that mechanic to life. Great, so here's another concept that invited some interaction. You turn the wheel to reveal the offer, and as you can see top left, we started using the Sky Q logo as a source of inspiration. So we explored some different mechanics. As you can see, it opens up, the wheels on the right hand side, talking about rotation to really bring people into the piece. And again, this is what we started to develop. We really like this idea. Very, very simple. Say lots of white space, call to action on the front, and you would turn the wheel at the bottom of the mechanic and the piece to reveal the offer. So a few options would revolve around, this is what we went with. Again, so this is how it looks. You can see we've used a little bit of a nudge, bottom right. Now, this sort of makes it crystal clear what the person actually has to do when you get it. I'm not necessarily a big fan of them because I think it's easy to look like you think the recipient's too stupid to actually make sense of what you're asking them to do. But I think if you use them wisely, they can really help you. So I just think there's a time and a place for them. So yeah, it depends on the concept and how much interaction and how much instruction you think you need to put on the front. So the other idea was based on the idea of a fruit machine, and you pull down the panel to reveal the offer in 3 windows, essentially like you'd win the jackpot. You just obviously wouldn't get a pile of grubby old 2p pieces falling out. So again, you can see really simple concept. we would just go back with almost like pencil scamps to present the ideas, and then develop them into Mac visuals and then actual working dummies for the car mechanics. And this is how it turned out. Great, thank you very much. I just thought with showing these videos really shows how the piece can come together from concept, development, as I say, working with the print guys, and how the actual thing finally works out. The whole thing needs to come together seamlessly, so it's a completely collaborative process. So we'd come up with the idea of using a wedding invite over a year ago, in fact, probably before that, but with lockdown, we had to put that on ice. But as soon as the restrictions eased, the pack went into production, and it's actually been one of our most successful pieces to date. Again, super simple, really engaging copy, a really nice paper stock there to give it a lovely feel of sort of a premium feel, and it's a standard format which we've appropriated for this, so it doesn't have to have lots of folds and pop-ups and what have you. Really simple idea in an elegant format. So you can see simple is sometimes best. Now, that one, wedding invite, shows that tactical can be your friend, and it can help make the creative more relevant and perhaps more effective. And here's an exclusive preview of our latest work, and here's also a short video to see how it all came together. Great, so here are the results. Now, Sky doesn't really want to share a lot of data in detail with the wider market. So, you know, these are real top line thoughts. And as a creative, to be honest, these are the numbers that I'm really interested in. But as you can see on the Miss Parcel, we got a 41% increase in reinstates, which blew the control out of the water. On the unbranded one, completely, we saw 80%, which was really interesting. And then on the menu card, we saw a 20% increase, not quite as good as we'd hoped. 178% with appeal and reveal, so it shows that a bit of interactivity can really make a difference to the response rate. And then the wedding invite itself, it's a 145% increase. So again, you can see all these campaign elements together really feed into the bigger story. And I think, you know, with a brave set of stakeholders, you can see how they continuously push us. And we've developed quite a bank of these. So there's a whole new campaign coming out at the back end of this year and then next year as well. So it's an ongoing process. But I think we've set the bar very high with these and we're constantly being pushed to come up with new ideas. So those are the numbers. And if I can just leave you with a few thoughts. So be insight driven and benefit led. Just make sure that we tell people what we want to hear, not what we want to tell them. Be brave, bold, different, innovative, kind of goes without saying. Be respectful. I think David Ogilvy said the consumer is not a moron, she's your wife. So I think we'd be well to remember that when we mail people. Be rewarding, and not just in terms of the offer, but the pack itself, the interactivity, and that sense of reward that they get from opening it and interacting with it. Be creative, an idea first, so idea before the execution, that comes afterwards. And, you know, you'll read more about this in the brilliant WARC report, but just DM isn't just about driving sales. It can build positive sentiment. It can amplify and build the brand in visuals, the copy, the tone of voice, and the attitude. And remember, most important thing, none of this plays. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Nigel. Some really interesting insights there on how the creative process works, and hopefully you've inspired a few of our listeners with just the diversity of what can be achieved with mail. So that brings us to our last section and time for some questions. As I said earlier, if you've got any questions that you'd like us to answer, type them in the question box now and we'll be able to see them. I'll kick off with a couple of questions that came in actually during Dan, your section.
Sure.
So there was a question. You showed a slide around time spent with mail, and we've had a question that just asked, have you seen people change their mail landing schedules to accommodate the increased weekend reads that you found in that second lockdown period?
Yeah, it's a really good question, actually. I think we have seen some brands taking advantage of that, you know, particularly in the sort of food delivery space. So we've seen people like, you know, kind of Uber Eats, for example, you know, sort of, you know, taking advantage of that and sort of, you know, delivering, you know, really strong offers on a sort of Thursday or Friday to kind of capture that weekend uplift. And, you know, I think it's something that we've always encouraged anyway, is a really sort of careful planning of when the mail drop actually lands. So, yeah, so, you know, if you've got a sale starting that weekend or whatever, you know, we can absolutely kind of accommodate that and make sure it lands at the right moment. But yeah, I think it's definitely something that people can be thinking about more at the moment. But particularly for anyone that watched BBC News this morning, it sounds like we could be heading for some more restrictions. So I think that's something to really sort of take into consideration over the next few months.
Yeah, great. And just for the person that asked about how you find the white paper around econometrics from JICmail, it is linked to in the report. So if you download the report, you'll be able to link through to it. Otherwise, I can send you an email afterwards with the link to that, and you'll be able to read it there. So I guess this is one for both of you, but Dan, if I can start with you. Throughout the report, we emphasise the role of mail as part of the wider media mix and how it can be used to amplify other channels. And with the growth of online retail and digital marketing generally, could one of the arguments for increasing the use of mail be around its role in driving people to other media, including digital. And I wondered if Nigel, you could follow up by saying if that's one of your objectives at Sky, kind of driving people to other channels.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, no, I mean, I think you're right. I think that was a really interesting insight in the report about the sort of relationship with mail and digital channels. And I think for me, what was really interesting about the uplift in kind of participation as well. So if you think about the kind of in the context of influencer marketing and user-generated content, using mail could be a really smart way to kind of drive e-commerce sales. And also a really impactful way of driving search as well. So I think there's a really kind of nice relationship there that can be taken advantage of. And I'm not sure. I think a lot of brands kind of miss that. So hopefully, off the back of this report, people will start to sort of tap into that a little bit more.
And Nigel, is that one of your objectives at Sky?
It is, yeah, thanks, Dan. Yeah, just to follow up on that, I think a lot of our email and DM campaigns are just channel specific, and particularly on the DM work, it generally drives to a call center. And the main reason for that is I think that if you then drive them to a digital experience, if you're not careful, it almost becomes another barrier to purchase. It's just another hurdle. But we found that driving people to a call center is way more successful because, when you've got skilled call center operatives, they can have a conversation with potential customer or the win-back customer, and they're much better at selling the product over the phone. Some of the other campaigns do tie into an experience. We generally don't use them for awareness. Sky being Sky, we tend to go big, right? Outdoor, print, TV, promos on our own channels. And what's interesting, you can't have missed the launch campaigns for Sky Glass. Now, we did no DM around that whatsoever, but we're already working on pending cancel and win-back campaigns, and then phase 2, and it's all DM. So you can see that real shift towards DM when we need to make it more personal. So yeah, I think the report does a really good job of proving that you can use it as a channel that amplifies a bigger message or drives you somewhere else. But I think probably some of our most successful campaigns are where they're just standalone, straight to a call center.
Great. We've actually had a question that kind of links through to what you just said around kind of your Sky Glass campaign. It's, does Sky use DM to engage with current TV customers? I receive a lot from Sky Mobile, but very little from Sky TV. So obviously your presentation was all around winning back customers, but do you do DM around current customers?
Yeah, we do. And if the person that answered that question wants to put their address in the chat, I'll make sure we are on the mailing list for all the TV DM that we do. Yeah, we do. I mean, again, it really depends on the objective for the campaign. I think broadband and mobile seems to work really well in DM. TV less so for whatever reason. Yeah, I don't really know the answer to that question, but it really is specific to those individual channels, what other people are doing in the marketplace, how personalized we want them to be as well. I think, as the data gets more complex and we understand what people are actually watching, some of the DM packs that you've seen there are win-back. TV weekly emails that we do, for example, we've got much better at targeting people with the content either they're watching at the moment or we think they're going to like going forward. So a lot of that might be down to data, but as I say, we'll make sure this guy or girl gets sent some TV marketing stuff very soon.
Great, thanks, Nigel. So Dan, one area the report looked at was the effectiveness of physical marketing, which your own Marketreach research has found to be most impactful amongst the Gen Z audience. Why do you think that audience is particularly receptive to mail at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think there's a few things really. I think that a lot of brands are desperate to get the attention of this audience, and I think there's a kind of perception that the only way to do that is through a smartphone. So they're kind of bombarded with messages on their smartphone and via social media. And actually, mail gives brands something really different. There's kind of an element of surprise and delight, because they don't receive a lot of mail. They're not targeted with DM. It can have a real kind of impact. So yeah, I think it's that, and I think there's also an element of because they don't receive much mail. When they do, I think they kind of see it as something that's really important. Like, oh my God, like someone's written to me, this must be an important message. I need to read it. I need to do something with it. So I think that sort of plays into it as well. And I think brands are getting a little bit better at kind of using digital integrations in DM as well. So, it's becoming, if you are trying to build that connection between a physical mail piece and a smartphone, then, there are opportunities out there for it. So yeah, I think it's kind of, there's a few different reasons, but yeah, I think the sort of the trust and the surprise and delight thing is really driving that trend at the moment.
Yeah, I think the other thing to pick up on that is the fact that mail is tactile. If you look at the growth of vinyl again, it's not just old people like me reliving their youth with the double gatefold, Yes albums. It's my kids, 19, 20, 21. And the reason being is that they're just a bit fed up with kind of, Spotify, other digital media, where these tracks just come at you all the time. They love the idea of a piece of vinyl, a physical piece of card, lyric sheets, something you can touch and feel and smell. And that, again, that's just something physical that I think that that generation is crying out for. There's that old phrase, isn't there, when everyone zag. So that whole drive towards digital, it's there, it's happening. I'm not a Luddite, I must point that out. But there's a lot of physicality that comes with DM as well that we should be exploring. And I think that can make a big difference too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think you've kind of answered one of the questions that's come in, but I'll pose it to you anyway in case there's anything more to say on it. Person says, Nigel, very inspiring presentation, thanks. Mail ads seem like they're a lot of work, especially for younger marketers and compared to digital ads. How can this be addressed? Would you say they're more work than digital?
Not necessarily more work. I think it's probably more education. For example, as a creative, you just think, oh, Max, for example, it's all automated. You hit automatic return, the letter spacing, the sentence breaks, it's all done for you. So we're trying to get back to some of those sort of old school craft skills. And I think it's true with a lot of marketers. They are digital first, digital. So, things like the WARC report, the work that Dan does and those brilliant guys over at Marketreach, training, tuition, and then seeing what's actually out in the world. So I think the appetite is there. They probably just need to be educated more and understand that this is a really important component. But I think that's true with stakeholders, it's with media people, it's with creatives themselves. But I've got a couple of pairs of flares in the wardrobe, right? And they all, I leave them there because in a few years' time they will come back. And I think that's the same is true of DM, and I can sense that it's coming back. But it's people just understanding it, how it can work to your favor, and just that whole education process, I think.
Yeah, okay, great. So Dan, there's another question in here for you. You mentioned Amazon is using DM. Obviously they can afford it, is what this person has said. How does Royal Mail make DM affordable for e-commerce SMEs? And would you agree with that kind of affordability versus other channels?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because if you are a small kind of e-commerce company, a little kind of direct-to-consumer brand, then obviously I think that the lure of digital is very tempting, because it's quite cheap. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, DM it does carry a higher cost per thousand. But we do a lot, lots of incentives to kind of help SMEs and smaller businesses, sort of test the medium and learn from it, and really, I think all we can do is kind of prove, just how effective it is, and it can really deliver. So I think try and look beyond the initial cost and see what it actually delivers for you. And I think the report is kind of littered with so many amazing results from really successful campaigns. that proves the return on investment. So I think it's just a slightly different way of looking at it. You know, so yeah, you know, but you know, anything we can do to kind of support smaller businesses that want to try it out, you know, please do get in touch, and we'll do everything we can to help you, you know, start that journey.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's going to sound quite old school, but I think, you know, DM is perfect for smaller businesses because it's so personal. And even if you send someone a beautifully written, elegant letter with a sign off from the MD or the founder of a company, it already says something about the type of business that they are. And it's a bit like the type of guys that you see on Dragon's Den. Some come on and you hate them immediately, right? And some of the smaller companies come on and you love them immediately. So I would say that I think DM is perfect for those businesses because it's a real shop front and it feels as if it's written by the founder of that company or the MD to you directly, laying out their stall. So as I say, it doesn't have to be expensive. A simple letter, standard format, beautifully written, elegantly designed. I think that'll be a really good place to start.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on a couple of interesting points there, Nigel, because, you know, obviously, you know, the superpowers of DM are cut through and trust. But I think also things like, you know, the fact that it's a long form medium that kind of gives you an opportunity to kind of really explain your product and service and, you know, answer those kind of potential questions that customers may have. And you know, I think it's just, it offers something a little bit different, and particularly in terms of personalization. I mean, everybody's talking about the privacy first world. Yeah, so yeah, I was just saying about sort of, you know, the end of cookies and the privacy first world, and everyone's talking about the end of personalization. Well, actually, direct mail is a great opportunity to deliver personalization. So you know, I think as Nigel said, for those smaller businesses that are trying to, you know, they're on a growth journey, I think it's a really nice way to you know, connect with your audience.
Yeah, I mean, Nigel, you're obviously from definitely not a small company, but you've been doing DM for a really long time at Sky. Do you have kind of advice for marketers wanting to test the water with DM, particularly around kind of getting buy-in for the channel, its use in the mix for those who kind of aren't using it at the moment?
Well, you know, for a start, your report, I'll probably stick that into their inbox, and, you know, support from Dan and the guys at Marketreach as well. But, you know, the thing about marketing is the numbers talk, right? And it's very easy to prove that this works with numbers. There are a lot of stats around its effectiveness, and it's a very convincing argument. And I think, you know, marketers also like to touch and feel a creative concept. Digital is fine, but they like to play with things and have some fun with it, interact with it. Imagine how that would be when it comes through their letterbox. So I think there's a very compelling argument for using DM. And you don't have to look far to get the reasons why it is. So yeah, I think with the right research and the right numbers in front of them, I think it's just a very convincing argument.
Yeah. Dan, a question's just come in that maybe you could elaborate on that answer Nigel's just given. It's I'm currently trying to test into moving from a very traditional DM model, which includes reply forms. We're struggling to see the same response rates and have nervousness around these changes. What advice do you have to navigate this safely / efficiently and commercially? Might be a difficult one to answer without the wider context, but any advice there?
It is, and in 2 minutes as well. That might be quite a difficult one to get through. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, if that person would like to drop me an email at daniel.jury@rawmail.com, yeah, we would love to have a look at that question and that brief and kind of unpack that a little bit. I think just quickly on reply forms, I think there's quite an interesting opportunity to kind of shift people online at the moment with QR codes. So, you know, you don't necessarily have to put a physical reply form in with a mail pack. You can drive people online to do that, which might be more efficient and kind of more sustainable as well. So, but yeah, if you'd like to drop me an email, we can unpack that question together. Absolutely.
Great. I think that's pretty much all we've got time for. There are some more interesting questions coming in around B2B as well, which I think is a really interesting area to tackle. So perhaps I can pass that one on to you as well, and you can get back to that person. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all we've got time for today. Thank you again so much for your time, Nigel and Dan. I think that was
Pleasure.
really great discussion, and we will send all of these slides around to all the listeners, and you'll be able to download the recording of the webinar as well. So yeah, that leaves me just to say thank you everyone for joining, and yeah, download the report.
Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
Have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.